Hi, welcome back to the Book Corner. We're reading The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Last time, Lucy went upstairs in the magician's house and she found the book of spells, and she said the spell that makes invisible things visible. Uh, and Then she saw Aslan, found out Aslan had been there all the time, but he was just invisible. And she was so happy. Anyway, now we're going to go on and see if this spell that makes invisible things visible has made it possible for these voices that they keep hearing to see if we can now see who they are. Anyway, I'm going to pick up reading chapter 11. It's called The Dufflepuds Made Happy. And the Dufflepuds is the name of these invisible people. That's a funny name for a group of people, isn't it? The Dufflepuds. Lucy followed the great lion out of the passage, and at once she saw coming towards them an old man, barefoot, dressed in a red robe. His white hair was crowned with a chaplet of oak leaves, and his beard fell to his girdle, and he supported himself with a curiously carved staff. When he saw Aslan, he bowed low and said, "Welcome, sir, to the least of your houses." So I wonder who this old man is. Could this be the magician, do you suppose? Anyway, he has reverence for Aslan, and he bows to him and says, "Welcome to the least of your houses." Do you grow weary, Coriacan? Let's see if I can say his name right. It's spelled Coriakin. Coriacan. Coriacan, something like that, okay? Do you grow weary, Coriacan, of ruling such foolish subjects as I have given you here? That's what Aslan asked him. No, said the magician. They are very stupid, but there is no real harm in them. I begin to grow rather fond of the creatures. Sometimes, perhaps I am a little impatient, waiting for the day when they can be governed by wisdom instead of by this rough magic. All in good time, Coriacan, said Aslan. Yes, all in good time, sir, was the answer. Do you intend to show yourself to them? Nay, said the lion, with a little half growl that meant, Lucy thought, the same as a laugh, I should frighten them out of their senses. Many stars would grow old and come to take their rest in islands before your people are ripe for that. And today, before sunset, I must visit Trumpkin the dwarf, where he sits in the castle of Cair Paravel, counting the days till his master Caspian comes home. I will tell him all your story, Lucy. Do not look so sad. We shall meet soon again. Please, Aslan, said Lucy, what do you call soon? I call all time soon, said Aslan, and instantly he was vanished away, and Lucy was alone with the magician. Gone, said he, and you and I are quite crestfallen. It's always like that. You can't keep him. It's not as if he were a tame lion. And how did you enjoy my book? Well, parts of it very much indeed, said Lucy. Did you know I was there all the time? Well, of course I knew when I left the Duffers, make themselves invisible, that you would be coming along presently to take the spell off. I wasn't quite sure of the exact day, and I wasn't especially on watch this morning. You see, they had made me invisible too, and being invisible always makes me so sleepy. Hey ho, here I'm yawning again. Are you hungry? Well, perhaps I am a little, said Lucy. I've no idea what the time is. Come, said the magician. All times may be soon to Aslan, but in my home all hungry times are 1 o'clock. He led her a little way down the passage and opened a door. Passing in, Lucy found herself in a pleasant room full of sunlight and flowers. The table was bare when they entered, but it was, of course, a magic table, and at a word from the old man, the tablecloth, silver, plates, glasses, and food appeared. I hope that is what you like, said he. I have tried to give you food more like the food of your own land than perhaps you have had lately. It's lovely, said Lucy, and so it was. An omelet piping hot, cold lamb and green peas, strawberry ice, lemon squash um, to drink with a meal, and a cup of chocolate to follow. But the magician himself drank only wine and ate only bread. There was nothing alarming about him, and Lucy and he were soon chatting away like old friends. He drank only wine and ate only bread. You know, bread and wine are symbols of Jesus. The day before Jesus was crucified, he passed out bread to his disciples and said, "Take, eat, this is my body given for you." And then he passed wine to them and said, "Take and drink. This is the covenant, the new covenant in my blood. Drink, drink from it, all of you." So when you see somebody who drinks just wine and eats only bread, it's probably a reference to uh, the Last Supper, as we call it, or some people call it the Eucharist. It's a symbol of Jesus, of Christ. Anyway, they were chatting away like old friends. "When will the spell work?" asked Lucy. "Will the duffers be visible again at once?" "Oh, yes, they're visible now, but they're probably all asleep still. They always take a rest in the middle of the day. And now that they're visible, are you going to let them off being ugly? Will you make them as they were before?" "Well, that's rather a delicate question," said the magician. "You see, it's only they who think they were so nice to look at before. They say they've been uglified, but that isn't what I call it. Many people might say the change was for the better." "Are they awfully conceited?" "Oh, they are, or at least the chief duffer is, and he's taught all the rest to be. They always believe every word he says." "We've noticed that," said Lucy. "Yes, we get on better. We would get on better without him in a way. Of course, I could turn him into something else, or even put a spell on him, which would make them all make them not believe a word he said. But I don't like to do that. It's better for them to admire him than to admire nobody." "Don't they admire you?" asked Lucy. "Oh, not me," said the magician. "They wouldn't admire me." "What was it you uglified them for? I mean, what they called uglified." "Well, they wouldn't do what they were told. Their work is to mind the garden and raise food. Not for me, as they imagine, but for themselves. They wouldn't do it at all if I didn't make them. And of course, for a garden, you want water. There is a beautiful spring about a half-mile away up the hill, and from that spring there flows a stream which comes right past the garden. All I asked them to do was to take their water from the stream instead of trudging up to the spring with their buckets 2 or 3 times a day and tiring themselves out besides spilling half of it on the way back. But they wouldn't see it. In the end, they refused point blank." So he just wanted them to take the water from the stream that ran right past the garden instead of trudging all the way up to the hill to the spring where the stream started. But they wouldn't do it. "Are they as stupid as all that?" asked Lucy. The magician sighed. "You wouldn't believe the troubles I've had with them. A few months ago, they were all for washing up the plates and knives before dinner. They said it saved time afterwards. I've caught them planting boiled potatoes to save cooking them when they were dug up. One day, the cat got into the dairy, and 20 of them were at work moving all the milk out. No one thought of moving the cat. But I see you've finished. Let's go and look at the duffers now that they can be looked at." They went into another room, which was full of polished instruments hard to understand, such as astrolabes, oriers, and chronoscopes, poise meters, and so on. They're hard to pronounce. And here, when they had come to the window, the magician said, "There, there are your duffers." I don't see anybody, said Lucy. What are those mushroom things? The things she pointed at were dotted all over the grass. They were certainly very like mushrooms, but far too big, the stalks about 3 feet high, and the umbrellas about the same length from edge to edge. When she looked carefully, she noticed too that the stalks joined the umbrellas, not in the middle, but at one side, which gave them an unbalanced look. And there was something, a sort of little bundle, lying on the ground at the foot of each stalk. In fact, the longer she gazed at them, the less like mushrooms they appeared. The umbrella part was not really round, as she had thought at first. It was longer than it was broad and widened at one end. There were a great many of them, 50 or more. Here's a picture of what she saw. You see that? You can see that the what looks like kind of like umbrellas at the top, umbrellas of a mushroom, except they're shaped, they're elongated and bigger at one end than at the other. And if you look carefully underneath, like right here, you can see that there seems to be almost like somebody underneath that umbrella-like structure. So that's what she saw. She couldn't quite figure out what they were. The clock struck 3. Instantly, a most extraordinary thing happened. Each of the mushrooms suddenly turned upside down. The little bundles which had lain at the bottom of the stalks were heads and bodies. The stalks themselves were legs, but not 2 legs to each body. Each body had a single thick leg right under it, not to one side like the leg of a one-legged man, uh, and at the end of it, a single enormous foot, a broad-toed foot, with the toes curling up a little so that it looked rather like a small canoe. She saw in a moment why they had looked like mushrooms. They had been lying flat on their backs, each with its single leg straight up in the air and its enormous foot spread out above it. She learned afterwards that this was their ordinary way of resting, for the foot kept off both rain and sun, and for a monopod to lie under its own foot is almost as good as being in a tent. Monopod, he calls them. Mono is a word for one, and pod is a word for foot. So they're monopods. They're one-footed creatures. Oh, the funnies, cried Lucy, bursting into laughter. Did you make them like that? Yes, I made the duffers into monopods, said the magician. He too was laughing till the tears ran down his cheeks. But watch, he added. It was worth watching, of course. These little one-footed men couldn't walk or run as we do. They got about by jumping, like fleas or frogs. And what jumps, uh, what jumps they made, as if each big foot was a mass of springs. And with that, a bounce, and with what a bounce they came down. That was what made the thumping noise, which had so puzzled Lucy yesterday. For now they were jumping in all directions and calling out to one another, Hey, lads, we're visible again. And here's a picture of them as they're upright now instead of sleeping. You see their long feet and one leg, and there they are, and they're bouncing around. So that's what the monopods look like. And that's how they get around, by jumping, bouncing around. Visible we are, said one in a tasseled red cap, who was obviously the chief monopod. And what I say is, when chaps are visible, why, they can see one another. Ah, there it is, Chief, cried all the others. There's the point. No one's got a clearer head than you. You couldn't have made it plainer. She caught the old man napping, the little girl did, said the chief monopod. We've beaten him this time. Just what we're going to say ourselves, chimed in the chorus. We're going stronger than ever today, Chief. Keep it up, keep it up. But do they dare to talk about you like that? Said Lucy. They seemed to be so afraid of you yesterday. Don't they know that you might be listening? That's one of the funny things about duffers, said the magician. One minute they talk as if I ran everything and overheard everything and was extremely dangerous. And the next moment they think they can take me in by tricks that a baby would see through. Bless them. Well, they have turned back into their proper. Will they have to be turned back into their proper shapes? Said Lucy. Oh, I do hope it wouldn't be unkind to leave them as they are. Do they really mind very much? They seem pretty happy. I say, look at that jump. What are they like? What were they like before? Oh, they were common little dwarves, he said. Nothing like so nice as the sort you have in Narnia. It would be a pity to change them back, said Lucy. They're so funny, and they're rather nice. Do you think it would make a difference if I told them that? I'm sure it would, if you could get it into their heads. Will you come with me and try? No, no, you'll get on far better without me. Thanks awfully for the lunch, said Lucy, and turned quickly away. She ran down the stairs. Well, I'm going to stop right there. Evidently, she's going to go down and talk to the Dufflepuds and try to convince them that they look great, that they're not ugly at all. We'll have to see how that goes. So in this reading, we've seen that Lucy and Aslan introduces Lucy to the magician, and the magician tells a story about the Dufflepuds so that she understands who they are and why they look the way they look. Well, next time we'll find out if she's able to convince them that they look pretty good. We'll have to see. That's it for today. Bye now.